So, questions I get asked a lot are what's a good scope? And anytime somebody asks me that, there's always a long pause before I answer. And most every time I answer the same way every time. I have no idea. You know, to anybody that's mechanically inclined, that same question of, what's a good scope is the same as somebody saying to you, my car is making a noise. What's wrong with it? Oh. So, when it comes down to it, I figured I'd explain a little bit as to why I can't answer that question for you. And if anybody's being honest with themselves, no other shooter should answer that question for you anyway, unless they know a lot of very specific parameters. So I'll give you, for instance, a guy came up to me at work today and he just showed me a picture of a scope. He's like, hey, this is a 4 to 16 by 44 scope, and this one's a 6 to 24 by 50 scope. Which one's better? I don't know. You know, it's like, what are you doing with it? And that's where we run into issues, is because I don't know what type of shooting you're doing. I don't know what that scope's going on. I don't know who made that scope. And all that matters. And here's why. All right. For those that don't know, scope, I'm talking about a rifle scope. Okay. This one is a BSA air rifle scope, and it is a 4 by 32 fixed power scope. All right. Would I consider this to be a good scope? Sure. It's a good scope for like an air rifle or a 22 if you're looking for fixed power. Now, when I say 4 by 32, what I mean is those numbers are 4 power means that it magnifies things 4 times larger than what they are with just seeing it with your eye. That's all that first number is. 32 is the size of this end of the scope. Basically, when you're shooting, you're looking in this end, this is the eye bell, and this end is your objective lens. All right, that last number is the size or diameter of that objective lens. So, for example, this one is 32 millimeters across. You take something like this scope is 50 millimeters across. So you can see the difference, all right? Larger end on it, larger eye bell. Well, eye bell really doesn't have anything to do with it. This scope is a Midas Tactical 6 to 24 by 50 millimeter scope. So that means the bottom end of magnification, which is you twist this ring, and that's the bottom end. So at the bottom end, it magnifies things by 6 power. At the top end, it magnifies things by 24 power. So 6 times closer, 24 times closer, and everywhere in between. All right, the objective lens is 50 millimeters across. Now, I consider these to be both good scopes. Probably. Actually, I haven't attached this to anything yet, so I don't know if it's a good scope or not. But it was way more expensive than this scope, so here, that's what, that's why I'm hoping it's a lot better. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I would never use this scope for the same thing I would use this scope for. Okay? This scope is good to attach to an air rifle or a 22, something where I'm shooting maybe 100 yards tops. That's what this is good for. This scope is good for up to 1,000 yards, probably. Like I said, I haven't attached it, haven't tried it out yet. We'll find out. But this scope is good for out to 1,000 yards. Now, am I saying it's good for 1,000 yards just because it's 6 times more powerful in the high-end magnification? No, that has nothing to do with it, weirdly. The reason this scope is better than this scope is because this scope is a lot better made than this scope. All right? Now, I'll give you, for instance, that's not the only reason. Let's take this, for example. This is a 300 blackout AR-15. You'll notice the scope on top of it doesn't look like this or like this. But I consider this rifle to be superior for this or this scope for this rifle because essentially you're going to be shooting anywhere from 0 yards to 300 yards with this rifle. That's not why it's called 300 blackout, but that's a whole nother story. This is what's called a tactical scope. The numbers on it are 2 to 7 by 32. So it magnifies things at the low end, makes them appear twice as close, and at the highest end, it's 7 times closer to your eye. The 32 is, it's got a 32 millimeter objective lens on it. The reason I consider this superior to this or that other scope is because of the rifle design it's on. Okay? This rifle's not made to be taking shots out to 1,000 yards. It's also not made to be taking shots into 100. Okay? It can, but that's not what it's for. This scope offers really quick magnification changes. It offers dials, which is how you change your elevation and your windage on your scope, basically changing where the crosshairs hit. It offers caps on those so you can just set them and leave them. And it also has hash marks on the objective lens or on the crosshairs. So basically you can range things with it. So if you know something's 200 yards away, you got a little crosshair underneath your regular one that makes it where you can adjust for the proper range. So it's all about application. All right. I'm not using this gun for 1,000 yards. It's just not what it's for. I'm not using this scope for 1,000 yards. I'm not using this big old thing for 50-yard shots. All right. Let me show you what I am doing. All right. This is an AR-15. This is another reason why this is problematic. Okay. This is an AR-15. All right. This nice, compact, light, easy to maneuver scope works perfectly on this AR-15 because it's made to use in your hands, moving around, taking shots. You notice no fingers on the trigger, no magazine, and it was cleared well before this video was shot. So get off my back. But anyway, it's great for moving around, maneuvering. It's light, it's compact, it's got light up crosshairs because, you know, shiny things are fun. So I just want to make sure it was off. So that's why this works for this application. AR-15, right? Well, problematic because this is also an AR-15. You'll note it looks somewhat different than its counterpart here. Okay? That's because this AR-15 is made to take shots at 1,000 yards. 300 to 1,000 yards is roughly the plan. It shoots 223 rounds instead of 300 blackout. It shoots slower than this rifle, and it's good for, like I said, target shooting. You are going to be laying down. You're going to be setting this rifle out on the front bipod here. You're going to be sitting at a bench or laid down on the grass, and you're going to be firing rounds downrange in a prone position, which is a nice, stable, easy to maintain position. Okay, for example, you know, the other rifle, you shoot like this. This one, have the front supported, and you actually put your spare hand here, and you stay behind the gun. All right? That is what this scope's for. Now, like I said, same model of gun, 2 totally different scopes. All right? It's all about your application. All right? You come to me and you say, I got an AR-15, what kind of scope should I put on it? I can't tell you that. You know, there are situations, there are cases where, for example, this scope is entirely appropriate for a compact carbine rifle. Not in my situation, but somebody else might love that scope on that rifle. For instance, all right, this scope, like I said, probably got out to 1,000 yards. I would love to say that that's the best scope that I've got, or the best situation I've got for that scope. Not that that phrase made any sense, but anyway, on the high end of things, I got this big dude right here. All right, this is a 300 Winchester Magnum target rifle. All right, this thing is made to shoot somewhere between 800 to about 1,800 yards. Okay, that's over a mile. That is the plan for this rifle. Now, clearly, we're going to need something a little bit more than this. All right, and at the end of the day, we are actually going to need something a little bit more than this. Now, when you break it down, this is a good scope, in my opinion. It will probably be very nice. I've never tried Athlon before, but they come very highly recommended. And honestly, this was expensive, so right now that's all I have to go off of. All right. This scope is roughly about $500 to $600. All right. That's a pretty good scope. All right. So where we get into the territory for this guy, you're not talking about some $500 or $600 scope. Now, I'm not prepared to say out loud what I'm probably going to end up paying for a scope on this thing. Partially because I don't want anybody to hear me, and partially because it kind of makes me gag a little bit. But let's just suffice to say that $600 for a scope for this rifle, that's low end. And I mean, you could do it, but it's almost pointless. I mean, for the ranges you're talking about for this thing, all right, 6 to 24 magnification, that's actually not bad. You could shoot over a mile with 6 to 24 magnification. I've done it. Worked great. You know, friend of mine using his scope worked great. But like I said, a lot of it comes down to precision and durability. All right. So at the end of the day, the act of hitting a target at 1,000 yards, a mile, 100 yards, whatever, that's awesome that you hit it, but the problem is, can you do it again? That's the end goal of a long range shooter like myself. Okay, at the end of the day, you hit it once, that's awesome. You know it can be done. Can you do it twice? Yeah, maybe. Can you do it 5 times? Can you hit it every single shot? You know, that's the end goal. So, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to this, I want every shot at a mile to hit dead bullseye on the target. Is that feasible? Probably not. But, you know, gives you a goal. So, like I said, 300 Win Mag. Am I going to be using this scope on it? No. Is this a good scope? Yes. It's precision. It works great. Also, 300 Winchester Magnum. This is a, sort of a Frankenstein rifle that is slowly being constructed out of parts from other rifles. It's a project I really don't care too much about, and honestly, it's just something to do with spare parts. That rifle is going into this stock. This is a standard, regular, Savage 110 stock. Comes with a magazine, everything. It's not bad. So, when I throw this rifle into this stock and actually get her all together, which you might not have noticed, but there's actually no trigger on that right now. When I get that all put together, what am I going to do with it? Well, it's probably going to be for stuff like hunting or, low-range target shooting. Again, it comes down to this rifle's good for shooting offhand, So am I going to bother buying a super precision rifle scope for it like I would for this? No, it's probably going to end up with something like this again. $400-$500. Pretty good precision scope. Some might say that's good enough for this, and I'm not going to disagree. I might end up with something like that on here. But this hunting scope, hunting rifle, hunting scope. So it's probably going to end up with something like a Vortex or something like that. Which brings me into my hopefully last point, is that at the end of the day, when it comes to somebody coming up and saying, hey, what's a good scope to buy? I don't know, man. I can say, yeah, a Vortex, for example. I have one on my 308. I love that scope. I've shot thousands of yards with it, or 8,000 yards with it, and hit the target consistently, easily. It's a great scope. Athlon. I've heard great things about them. Uh, Night Force is an amazing scope. The problem that a lot of people run into though is you tell them, yeah, Vortex, Athlon, Night Force. Look Night Force up. That'll give you a migraine. Leopold. All these are great scopes, but they cost money. And that's where we run into an issue is that you tell people, yeah, get a Vortex, get that. And in their mind, they're thinking about something like this. This BSA probably costs $20. And, like I said, it'll work great on 22 because 22 doesn't have, you see how much I care about it, 22 doesn't have a lot of recoil. So your shot isn't going to change much between rounds on that. What I mean by that is, for example, this 300 Win Mag, you fire it, it's a lot of recoil kicking back. So your point of aim changes every time you fire something that heavy. It means that, you're shot 1 here, shot 2 there, shot 3 there, shot 4 there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right? With something like the Athlon or the Vortex or the Leopold or any of them, Night Force, the money you're putting into that is to make that group of bullet shots as small as possible. Okay? You want them as tiny as possible. And the problem I run into when people ask me what's a good scope is you tell them Night Force, Leopold, Athlon, and they see $5, $6, $7, $800, $4,500, $5,000. There's even more expensive scopes out there. I can keep going. You can pay literally as much as you want. You can buy a new car for the cost of a good scope, like a super good scope. Not joking. I've seen it. But the problem is a lot of people, you tell them, yeah, spend that kind of money on a good scope. And they think, well, I'm not really looking in that price range. It's like, well, you really at the end of the day then don't want me to tell you what's a good scope. You want me to tell you that going and getting a $40 scope from Walmart is as good as going to a really high-end reputable scope company. And I'm not going to lie, for the longest time, I was in that same camp. One of the first target rifles I ever built, something along these lines right here. And actually, I know the guy that has it. He's still got it. And I don't even know if it has a scope on it right now. But, that very first rifle, I had a Tasco 10 to 40 by 50 power scope on it. So it would magnify things 40 times closer. And I thought, well, that's what matters. But the problem is that ain't what matters. This scope at 1,000 yards would be infinitely more accurate than that 40 power one. This goes up to 24, that other one up to 40. Why is this one so much more accurate? Because it's super well made and super finely machined. It's precise. Okay? There's no rattling stuff around. There's no knocking the crosshairs out. It is just a good scope. It's the same with Leopold and Night Force and all those guys. You're not paying for the name, you're paying for the fine quality machining that went into the rifles, or went into the scopes. This BSA, for example, they knocked out 1 million of these in one day and just sent them out. I can guarantee you they did not put a hell of a lot of time or thought into the scope. So mounting something like this that's dirt cheap is not going to make a lot of sense on something like this where you're expecting to shoot 1,000 yards. Could you do it? Yeah. Could you hit some 1,000 yards away? No. You're probably not gonna. Even something like that Tasco that I was talking about, the 10 to 40 power by 50 millimeter. Something like that, you could read a license plate 2 miles away, no problem. You could tell them, hey, your tags are going out of date. It would zoom in that far. And all that did when it came to actually shooting something was you would watch yourself miss that much closer. That was it. It was terrible. One shot would go here, the other shot there, the other shot there. It was awful. So finally one day I got sick of it and just decided to invest in good scopes. And let me tell you, it's certainly saved me a lot of money on bullets because my shots go where I want them to. Whenever I do elevation adjustments, which is where you raise and lower your crosshairs using the turrets right here, it actually goes and moves the amount that I want it to. So, like for example, at 100 yards, one click on this is supposed to move your crosshairs up or down 1/4 of an inch. So one click, I think you probably heard that. One click, that's 1/4 inch at 100 yards. With this, it's zero point 0.1 mil at 100 yards. So that's 0.1 mil. That's 0.2 mils. That's 0.3 and 4 mils. I can guarantee you that whenever I click this, it is actually that measurement. Whenever I click this, basically, let me put it to you this way. If I were to just take this and wrench it up, let's say that's 10 inches at 100 yards, all right? I just raise that up 10 inches at 100 yards. If I were to go down the same exact amount of clicks, it ain't ending up back where I want it to go. So that's the difference, all right? $40 scope, $600 scope. And let me put it to you this way. I can return this. I can send it back to the company, get my money back, no problem. It is worth investing in that, okay? You spend all your money and time and energy either building or getting something like this built, your scope's going to make all the difference in your relationship to it, okay? It's going to make it work. It's going to make it better. It's going to make it more accurate. So whenever you come up to a guy and say, hey, what's a good scope? If he's being honest, he ain't going to be able to answer you. I'm not going to be able to sit here and say, oh, yeah, get a Leopold VX10 or an Athlon Midas TAC 6 to 24 by 50. I don't know what kind of shooting you're doing. I can tell you Vortex. I'll say it right now. Vortex is a great company to buy a scope from. You know, you get what you pay for. They make $100 Vortex scopes. They make $2,000 Vortex scopes. Is a $100 Vortex scope going to perform like a $2,000 Vortex scope? No. But a $100 Vortex is probably going to compete a heck of a lot better against something like this, a BSA, you know, or a $100 Tasco. You know, it's just the way it works. All right. So, you know, it's just a short little rant video saying, hey, you know, when you see the dude that you know that shoots, put a little thought into asking him, hey, how's this part work? How's that part work? What do you think I should do to my rifle? He don't know. I do long range shooting. That's completely different than 3-gun. That's completely different than a pistol competition. You know? And heck, I mean, when you get down to it, pistols. Take this, for example. This is my Taurus Raging Judge 454, whatever. Taurus Raging Judge Magnum. You can put a scope on this. Do you think I'm going to mount something like this on this dude? No, I'm not. I mean, that'd be insane. And also, again, empty. You know, but yeah, scopes vary. Okay? And the type you use matters. So, what I can tell you is if you want a good reputable scope to use, get online, read reviews, find a good reputable company. None of the ones that I've listed off sponsor me or anything. You know, I pay for all my own stuff. So, you know, what I am saying though is just get online, read reviews, find stuff that works. There are your mainstays, you know, like Leopold, Tasco, Leopold, Athlon, Vortex, Night Force, you know, Bushnell, they make good ones, you know, Nikon even, they make good scopes. But do your research, put the time in, and make an informed, good decision on your own. Because going to a guy and saying, hey, what's going to work for me? He's either going to lie his ass off or he's been shooting with you enough to know, hey, this scope works out good for me. This is what I can tell you. Make your own informed decision. That's as good of a piece of advice as anybody can give you. So, yeah. Um, that's about all I got, really. Like I said, I just want to get one little rant out there because I haven't made a video in 9 months. And seriously, I mean, a lot's happened since then. Obviously, this thing morphed and changed, and all kinds of stuff happened. So I'll do an update on this now that it's complete and doesn't look like it's about to explode. And then yeah, we'll get back to it. So anyway, I'll talk to you later.